title for this morning's sermon, The Strange Attractor, comes from a concept in chaos theory. The concept is that in any system, when chaos erupts, there is an overall pattern or form in which seemingly random activity will never exceed certain boundaries. The unique pattern or form of these boundaries is called the chaotic strange attractor. This, the three-winged bird, is one example of a chaotic strange attractor. More about this in a bit. We Presbyterians do well with order, with the expected, with the familiar. We have even named the book which we turn to as a guide to how we do things, the Book of Order. The phrase decently and in order has become synonymous with our way of getting our work and mission done. Yet, inevitably, something will happen we don't expect. They range from the insignificant to the traumatic. Snow or ice causing a delay or cancellation of school or our plans. Receiving notification that your workplace is closing, such as Toys R Us. Onset of an illness or stroke. The death of a loved one. The shootings in schools and on the streets. The sudden collapse of a bridge, the pedestrian bridge in Miami, or the bridge 10 years ago in Minneapolis. When too much unexpectedness or change enters our lives, our level of stress rises. Children, grandchildren, have a way of providing the unexpected word which can lead to additional stress and chaos. A grandmother had just arrived to visit her grandchildren. The parents, the grandmother's daughter and son-in-law, were out in the backyard. She was greeted by her 6-year-old grandson, Tommy. "I'm sure glad to see you, Grandma. Now maybe Daddy will show us the trick he's been promising us." "What trick?" Grandma asked. Well, Tommy responded, "Well, I overheard Daddy telling Mommy that he was planning on climbing the walls when you arrived." As greater uncertainty comes into our lives, comes into our community, our level of stress increases. And as more things become unpredictable, we begin to feel that life is becoming chaotic. Generally, we view chaotic situations in and of themselves as bad. Human history is filled with our attempt to control our environment, to control other people, to avoid or rid our lives of chaotic situations. However, what we are learning from the new physics suggests another outlook, more along the lines suggested before the time of Christ's birth. The first words of the Greek myth of creation have a familiar ring to them. In the very beginning. But it continues a bit differently than the familiar words of Genesis. In the very beginning was chaos, the endless, yawning chasm, devoid of form or fullness, and Gaia, the mother of earth, who brought forth form and stability. Margaret Wheatley, in her enlightening book, Leadership and the New Science, offers a description of the relationship between chaos and Gaia. In Greek consciousness, chaos and Gaia were partners, two primordial powers engaged in a duet of opposition and resonance, creating everything we know. Creativity, form, order, if you will, comes out of chaos. Without situations of chaos, creativity would be diminished. This is indeed a different way of viewing chaos. Chaos is not usually part of our plans for the week or any time for that matter. In her book, Wheatley offers an understanding of the growing awareness in physics and other sciences of the importance of chaos in our lives. It is not always something to deny, avoid, or abolish from our midst. Rather, it can be and often is something positive and necessary for our lives to grow and become more meaningful. When a system erupts in unpredictability, chaos theory suggests there is an order to the unpredictability if we distance ourselves far enough away. Not in physical distance, but in time. The order which is revealed over time is called a chaotic strange attractor. No matter how unpredictable specific actions or results are within a particular system, there are boundaries, a larger pattern to which the actions or results will conform. This pattern or form is the strange attractor. The image of the three-winged bird records millions of iterations of a simple nonlinear equation plotted by a computer in three-dimensional space. As Sweetley describes, chaotic strange attractors reveal the order inherent in chaotic systems, order that is only visible over time and history. In a very fundamental way, the power inherent in Jesus as the Son of God and the Son of humanity serves to establish an overall order to all creation. In the language of today's physics, Jesus serves as the strange attractor. The events we perceive in our daily lives as unpredictable, even chaotic, fall within the overall pattern for creation encompassed in the life, death, and resurrection and ascension of Christ. The fundamental pattern in the order to all of creation, I believe, can be heard in these words of Jesus from today's passage. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted from the earth, will draw all people to myself. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. Where the phrase lifted up appears in John, it refers to both the actual crucifixion of Jesus, his being lifted up on the cross, and to his being lifted up from death to life and his ascension into heaven. This coincides with the ruler of this world being driven out. The ruler of this world is understood as a reference to the devil or Satan. Evil will be overcome once the reign of God's love becomes the order for all creation. Jesus was obedient, even obedient to his death as he was lifted up on the cross. Such radical obedience serves as a constant judgment upon our lives. This is the context for our understanding of his earlier statements about a seed having to lose its life in order to grow, losing one's life to keep it, living to serve. Each of us can identify times in our own lives when we stopped short of what we knew Jesus was calling us to do as his disciples, and then feel the judgment of his life's example upon our lives. When I was in elementary school, I think it was around 5th grade, there was a student whose intellectual development was limited, and we referred to him as retarded. I shudder today at the pain that word caused him when he heard it addressed in his direction. Today, my guess is that he would be somewhere on the autism spectrum. Well, I joined in on the teasing, the word describing my actions at the time, because he was different. Today, such behavior is called bullying. I clearly remember one day when we were out for recess, and he was sweeping the rocks off from the cement platform before we entered the school. See, there were these little pebbles around the cement, and they were easily kicked up onto the sidewalk. Well, as he swept, I joined my friends in throwing rocks back up onto that cement base. After a while, he grew frustrated, angry. He hollered at us. He threw the broom at us and then ran inside. Well, we got the response that we wanted. Why did we do it? Well, why does anyone do something like that? Bully, abuse others? It's to show a sense of superiority, to feel in control. Our punishment was the loss of recess for a quarter, for the remainder of the quarter. Yet that didn't really impact me too much. It was a few years later, when attending a church camp, we had an afternoon on forgiveness. We were asked to remember a time for an action that we took that we needed to be forgiven. Well, that was the image that came up into my mind. I still remember the hurt in his eyes as he looked at us, as he saw what we were doing to him. Well, their family had moved away from my hometown, and so there was no way for me to get a hold of him, to be able to offer my sense of apology, to seek his forgiveness. And so that afternoon, I sought Jesus' forgiveness. I asked him to forgive me for these actions that I took and to treat people as Jesus would want me to treat them, as he treated them. Yet, I know there are times when I still fall short of that, even though that remains my desire today, to treat people as Jesus would have us treat them. Then, when I do fall short, it is Jesus' life of obedient service that calls me to attention, to pay attention to my actions, that continues to reveal to me where I have fallen short and with whom I can do better. In Christ, the power of God's love is revealed. A power continuously at work, making all things new, bringing about God's realm on earth just as it is in heaven. As we respond to the creative activity of Christ in the world, our responses, our lives become a part of what is becoming to be. Even when life seems confusing and chaotic without a sense of direction, there is an overall pattern into which all of life is being drawn. Even when we sin, even when we see clear acts of evil, we can trust that nothing escapes the power of love revealed in Christ Jesus. Jesus said, "And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." As we approach Holy Week, we know the drama, the suffering, the judgment, the confusion, and the hope and promise revealed in Christ Jesus. So, let us remember, the power of God's love revealed in Christ draws us continually into a life of love and service, even as Christ draws us to himself. This is the gift that we have been given. This is the good news of God's love.